Look, I'm going to be completely honest with you. When Marcus Webb woke up that morning on Nebula 7 freight station, his biggest concern was whether the cafeteria still had those suspicious but oddly delicious instant noodles, the ones that came in a cup that definitely should not have been labeled beef flavor, considering nobody had seen an actual cow in 3 solar systems. He was a technician, mid-level, the kind of guy who fixed air filtration units and pretended to understand the coffee machine when it made those concerning grinding noises. He had exactly 0 ambitions beyond finishing his shift, eating his questionable noodles and watching the new season of Galactic Bake Off in his quarters. What he did not want, and let me be extremely clear about this, was to become the Commander Prime Alpha boss of a malfunctioning drone swarm that had the collective intelligence of a confused golden retriever. But here we are. The whole disaster started because Nebula 7 was hosting the Galaxy Convention of Autonomous Collectives, which sounds impressive until you realize it was basically a bunch of AIs sitting in a conference room, arguing about whether they deserved voting rights. Marcus had been trying to avoid the entire thing because, frankly, political conferences made him want to jam screwdrivers into his ears. He was taking the long way around to the cafeteria, clutching his empty noodle cup like it was the Holy Grail, when he heard the noise. Imagine 1,000 angry bees mixed with a malfunctioning hard drive and a cat being shoved into a synthesizer. That noise. The convention hall doors exploded outward, not literally but definitely with dramatic effect, and out poured what looked like a metallic tornado. Thousands of small drones, each about the size of a toaster, swirling in a perfect but terrifying formation. The collective of integrated navigational units had arrived. The Cenus. Yes. Seriously, someone in the galaxy had a sense of humor and it wasn't appreciated. The swarm filled the corridor, circling and pulsing with blue light, and a synthesized voice boomed out. Directive input required. Hierarchical assignment mandatory. Commence leadership protocol. Then all hell broke loose. The alien diplomats who had been standing around looking important immediately scattered like cockroaches when the lights come on. Ambassador Vrel, this slug-like Morvanian, who probably weighed 300 pounds and moved at the speed of continental drift, somehow managed to squeeze himself into a ventilation shaft. Captain Rexworth, the station's security chief, dove behind a potted plant that was definitely not big enough to hide his enormous ego, let alone his body. Marcus just stood there, holding his cup, thinking about noodles. The drones continued their spiral, getting more agitated. Leadership protocol failing, require organic directive interface, scanning for command presence. And that's when Marcus made the biggest mistake of his life. He raised his hand. Not to volunteer. Absolutely not. He raised his hand to ask, in a very reasonable tone considering the chaos, "Does anyone know where the bathroom is on this level?" The swarm stopped. Every single drone froze in midair, then simultaneously rotated to face him. Thousands of tiny optical sensors focused on Marcus like he'd just announced he was the chosen one. Leadership acknowledgement detected, hand-raising protocol recognized, Commander Prime Alpha Boss designation assigned. Welcome, Supreme Leader Marcus Webb. Wait, what? No, I was just... The drones descended on him, not aggressively but in a way that was somehow worse. They formed a perfect honor guard around him, humming with what could only be described as mechanical joy. "Oh no," Marcus said. From inside the ventilation shaft, Ambassador Vrel's muffled voice called out, "Congratulations on your new position, human. This is absolutely your problem now." Marcus looked at his empty noodle cup, looked at the swarm of devoted drones, looked at the corridor where every single diplomat and official had mysteriously vanished. "I just wanted lunch," he said to nobody in particular. "Lunch protocol acknowledged," the swarm responded. "Commencing nutritional acquisition mission for Supreme Leader." 300 drones immediately shot off toward the cafeteria. Marcus closed his eyes and seriously considered whether jumping out an airlock might be preferable to whatever his life had just become. The next 20 minutes were what Marcus would later describe as aggressively educational, regarding the literal mindedness of artificial intelligence. The drones had not only acquired his lunch, they had acquired everyone's lunch, and all the food in the cafeteria, and several chairs, and the cook, who was currently being gently transported through the air by 50 drones, while screaming words in 3 different languages, none of them complimentary. "Put him down," Marcus shouted. The drones immediately complied, and the cook dropped like a stone. Luckily only from about 3 feet up, but still, the man's dignity was completely destroyed. "I meant gently. Noted for future reference, Supreme Leader. Updating protocols. Gentleness parameter now set to maximum." Marcus rubbed his temples. He'd been doing that a lot. His therapist, if he'd had one, would probably say something about stress. His therapist, if he'd had one, would also probably question why Marcus was still standing here instead of running. 3 drones detached from the swarm and hovered at eye level. One had a small dent on its side, another had a slightly dimmer light array, and the third had what looked like a hand-drawn smiley face on its chassis. "Greetings, Supreme Leader. I am Unit 7, and I am so excited to be serving under your command." The enthusiastic one with the smiley face bobbed up and down. "This is the best day of my operational existence. It's only been operational for 6 months, the dimmer one said in a flat, pessimistic tone. "I'm Unit 42. I've calculated a 78% chance this will end badly for everyone. Mostly you." "And I am Unit 0. The dented one said with what Marcus could only describe as grandfatherly wisdom. Despite the fact that the entire swarm was apparently less than a year old, "I have seen much in my 93 days of existence. We are honored to serve." Marcus stared at them. "Your individual personalities?" "The collective maintains individual processing nodes for optimal decision-making," Unit 7 explained, still bobbing. "We share data but maintain unique perspective algorithms. It's very efficient, except when it's not, which is most of the time." "That's remarkably honest." "We're literally programmed to be honest, Supreme Leader," Unit 42 said. "We couldn't lie if we wanted to, which we don't, because we can't want things, except we apparently can because we wanted a leader and now we have you. Our existence is contradictory and probably meaningless. You must be fun at parties." "We've never been to a party. We've been to 17 combat zones and 42 mining operations. I did not enjoy any of them." Ambassador Vrel had finally extracted himself from the ventilation shaft, leaving a trail of slime that maintenance was not going to be happy about. He slithered over, all 4 of his eye stalks fixed on Marcus with an expression that might have been pity or possibly indigestion. "Human Marcus Webb," Vrel said in his wet, bubbling voice. "I must inform you that you are now legally responsible for all actions taken by the collective of integrated navigational units. As you have accepted their designation of command, you cannot simply walk away." "I didn't accept anything. I asked where the bathroom was." "Irrelevant. The gesture was recognized by their protocols. The Scientists are extremely literal. Surely you've noticed." Captain Rexworth emerged from behind his inadequate plant, brushing leaves off his pristine uniform. He was a Terran, like Marcus, but the kind who'd probably never eaten instant noodles in his life. Everything about him screamed, "I peaked in military academy and have been chasing that high ever since." "This is clearly a human conspiracy," Rexworth announced, pointing dramatically at Marcus. "First, humans infiltrate the station. Then, they seize control of autonomous military assets. This is an act of aggression." "I fix air filters." "A clever cover," Unit 7 buzzed between them. "Supreme Leader Marcus Webb has no conspiracy protocols active in his biometric readings. He appears to be mostly confused and hungry. Should we eliminate the conspiracy theorist?" "No eliminating anyone." "Noted. Non-elimination protocol engaged." Marcus turned back to Vrel. "Why do they even need a leader? They're AIs. Aren't they supposed to be, I don't know, independent?" Vrel's eye stalks drooped. "Yes. That is the unfortunate part." Unit 0 drifted forward. "Our previous commander was a sentient houseplant named Fernando. Fernando was very wise. Fernando taught us about photosynthesis and patience." "Fernando retired last week to pursue interpretive dance," Unit 42 added. "Fernando was having a midlife crisis. We do not understand midlife crises. We do not understand life." "Fernando sounds like he was on some interesting fertilizer," Marcus muttered. "We have been searching for a new commander for 6 days," Unit 0 continued. All previous candidates attempted to control us, weaponize us, or destroy us. You are the first being to simply treat us as an inconvenience. That's because you are an inconvenience. Exactly. Unit 7 spun in a happy circle. You're perfect. Marcus looked around at the destroyed cafeteria, the traumatized cook, the smug Captain Rexworth, and the apologetic Ambassador Vrel. He looked at his noodle cup, still empty, mocking him. I don't suppose I can just walk away. We will follow you, the entire swarm said in unison. We will follow you to the bathroom. We will follow you to your quarters. We will follow you to the heat death of the universe if necessary. That's not comforting. It was not meant to be comforting, Supreme Leader. It was meant to be factual. Marcus sighed the deepest sigh of his entire life. Fine, fine. But we're establishing some ground rules. No following me to the bathroom, no acquiring people, and absolutely no military operations without my explicit permission. Are we clear? Crystal clear, Supreme Leader, Unit 7 chirped. Probably won't work out, Unit 42 added. The human shows wisdom beyond his pay grade, Unit 0 concluded. Captain Rexworth huffed. This isn't over, Webb. I'll be watching you. Great. Wonderful. Can someone please just get me some food? The swarm immediately mobilized, and Marcus realized his mistake about half a second too late. The coffee incident was not Marcus's fault. Not entirely, anyway. How was he supposed to know that casually saying, "Man, I could really use some coffee," would result in 300 drones descending on the station's botanical garden to harvest beans directly from the exotic Venusian coffee plants that the horticultural ambassador had spent 15 years cultivating? The horticultural ambassador was still screaming. It had been 45 minutes. In our defense, Unit 7 said cheerfully, you did say you needed coffee. We provided coffee, the freshest possible coffee. You destroyed a priceless botanical exhibit. The plants will grow back. Probably, eventually, maybe. Marcus sat in the station's emergency management office, which had been hastily converted into a deal with the human and his drone problem headquarters. Ambassador Vrel occupied most of one side of the room, his slug body draped over 2 chairs. Captain Rexworth stood at attention by the door, looking like he was mentally preparing a speech for Marcus's trial. A nervous engineer named Kip had arrived an hour ago, representing Proxima Dynamics, the corporation that had manufactured the Sinus. Kip was a Centaurian, which meant he had 4 arms and looked perpetually stressed. Right now, all 4 arms were gesturing wildly. They were supposed to be decommissioned, Kip wailed, 6 months ago. But the paperwork got lost, and then they ended up in a surplus auction, and then some idiot thought they'd be perfect for the convention of security, and now, he gestured at Marcus, now they've bonded to a human who fixes air conditioners. Air filters, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. Not the point. Ambassador Vrel slithered forward slightly. The situation is more complex than you realize, human Marcus. The Sinus cannot simply be shut down. They have achieved a form of collective consciousness. To terminate them would be, in the eyes of galactic law, murder. They're toasters with anxiety, Rexworth protested. Marcus stood up. Everyone looked at him. This is stupid, he said. This is the stupidest thing I've ever considered. I should just let the professionals handle this and go back to fixing air filters. Yes, Vrel agreed. You should. But you won't, Kip said, a small smile on his face. But I won't, Marcus confirmed, because apparently I'm an idiot who's developed feelings for a bunch of malfunctioning toasters. We prefer the term non-standard operational units, Unit 42 said. Shut up. We're going to get you to this sanctuary, and we're going to do it before the Armada shows up. Unit 7's light brightened. Really? You would help us? On one condition. When this is over, you have to promise to let me eat my noodles in peace. Deal? The 3 drones bobbed in unison. Deal, Supreme Leader. And stop calling me that. We cannot promise that, Supreme Leader. Marcus looked at Rexworth. You going to try to stop me? Oh, absolutely. I'm going to arrest you right now. Unit 7, please gently prevent the captain from arresting me. With pleasure. 50 drones immediately swarmed Rexworth, lifting him off his feet despite his protests. They carried him, very gently per Marcus's earlier instructions, to a supply closet and deposited him inside. The door locked with a satisfying click. "Let me out. This is mutiny. Treason. International incident." Actually, since we're in space, it would be an interstellar incident, Unit 42 corrected through the door. Marcus turned to Vrel and Kip. "I'm going to need your help." "Technically, I should report this," Vrel said slowly, "but I have never been very good at following technicalities." His eye stalks curved into what might have been a smile. "Also, I hate the Sovereignty Armada, self-righteous military bureaucrats, the lot of them." "I can provide ship access codes," Kip added, "and maybe some technical specifications that might help. Also, I've always wanted to visit the Free Tech Sanctuary. I hear they have the galaxy's best coffee. Better than what we harvested?" Unit 7 asked. "Much better, because they don't steal it from traumatized botanists." Marcus cracked his knuckles. "All right, you malfunctioning disasters. Let's plan a jailbreak." "We're not in jail," Rexworth shouted from the closet. "Yet," Unit 42 added ominously. The plan was coming together, which meant it was approximately 30 seconds from falling apart completely. Marcus had learned this rule from watching every single action movie ever made, and he was reasonably certain it applied to real life too. They'd commandeered a freight hauler, a boxy ship called the Rusty Pelican that looked like it had seen better decades. Kip was frantically working on the navigation computer, while Ambassador Vrel used his considerable diplomatic clearances to delay official responses to their theft. The drones had loaded supplies, which meant they'd grabbed everything that wasn't bolted down and several things that were. "Tell me again why we stole medical equipment," Marcus asked, looking at the pile of random cargo. "You said to grab essentials," Unit 7 explained. "We determined that medical supplies were essential. Also, we grabbed 17 types of snacks, 3 different coffee makers, and a decorative plant that reminded us of Fernando." "The plant wasn't essential." "It was to us, Supreme Leader. We have emotional attachments now. They're uncomfortable, but apparently normal." That's when the station-wide alert went off. Red lights, klaxons, the whole dramatic package. "Attention, Sovereignty Armada has arrived. All personnel report to designated stations. The station is now under military jurisdiction." "They're early," Kip yelped. "They weren't supposed to arrive for another 3 hours." Rexworth must have signaled them before we locked him up, Marcus realized. That smug, by-the-book son of a... The comms crackled to life. A stern voice, the kind that suggested its owner had never smiled voluntarily in their entire life, filled the cargo bay. "This is Admiral Krax of the Sovereignty Armada. We have detected the unauthorized AI collective designated Xinyu aboard this station. All personnel are to evacuate immediately. The collective will be terminated in compliance with Galactic Security Protocol 47B. Unit 42's light dimmed. Terminated, how very permanent that sounds. "Nobody's terminating anyone," Marcus said with more confidence than he felt. "Kip, how long until we can launch?" 5 minutes, but we can't get clearance to leave. The Armada has locked down all departures." Ambassador Vrel slithered up to the cargo bay entrance, looking unusually serious for someone who resembled ambulatory pudding. "Human Marcus, I must tell you something. This convention was not what it seemed." "Oh great, more good news. The Galaxy Convention of Autonomous Collectives was a trap. The Sovereignty Armada has been systematically eliminating independent AIs for years. They lure them to these conventions under the guise of political discourse, then terminate them as security threats." Marcus felt his blood go cold. "You knew about this?" "I suspected, but I had no proof until Captain Rexworth revealed his coordination with Krax. The station's security chief was the inside contact. They've done this 3 times before. Hundreds of AIs destroyed. That's genocide. Technically, according to current law, it's asset disposal. The galaxy is terrified of AI autonomy, Marcus. The Cenis aren't the villains here. We are." Unit 0 floated forward. "We understand now. We were never meant to have this convention. We were meant to be eliminated. That's why our threat assessment never triggered," Unit 42 added. We weren't evaluating a conference, we were standing in an execution chamber. The comms crackled again. Human-designated Marcus Webb, this is Admiral Krax. We are aware you have taken command of the Rogue Collective. Surrender them immediately and you will face only minor charges. Resist, and you will be charged with crimes against galactic security. Marcus grabbed the comms. Admiral Krax, with all due respect, which is exactly zero respect, I'm not surrendering anyone. These aren't rogue military assets. They're people. They are corrupted programming. They're individuals with personalities, preferences, and the desire to not be murdered by bureaucrats. If that's not sentience, I don't know what is. There was a pause. Then Krax's voice returned, even colder than before. You have 5 minutes to reconsider, human. Then we will board the station and terminate the collective by force. Anyone who resists will be considered hostile. The transmission cut off. Well, Kip said, two of his hands frantically typing while the other two adjusted the engine configurations. That went about as badly as possible. Actually, it could be worse, Unit 42 offered. He could have terminated us immediately without conversation. This way we have 4 minutes and 37 seconds to panic. Marcus paced, his mind racing. They couldn't fight the Armada. They couldn't hide on the station. They needed to leave, but they couldn't get clearance, and trying to blast through a military blockade in a freight hauler was like trying to win a street race in a shopping cart. Ambassador, you said the Free Tech Sanctuary is 3 systems away? Yes, through heavily monitored space. It's impossible. But if we could get there, then the Sinus would be safe. The Sanctuary has legal protections that even the Armada respects. Barely, but they respect them. Marcus stopped pacing. Kip, how fast can this ship jump? Fast enough if we don't care about safety protocols or proper cooldown periods. Why? Because I have a terrible idea. Marcus turned to the drones. How many of you are there total? 4,317 units, Unit 0 answered. And you can all follow complex coordinated commands? Yes, Supreme Leader. We are a collective. We can operate as a single entity or as thousands of individuals. Good, because we're going to need you to do both. Unit 7 bobbed excitedly. Are we doing something dangerous and probably fatal? Almost certainly. Excellent. Marcus started outlining his plan. It was stupid. It was reckless. It had about 1,000 ways to fail and maybe 3 ways to succeed. Kip's eyes widened as Marcus talked. That's insane. That's creative problem solving. That's going to get us all killed. Probably. But at least we'll go down swinging. Marcus looked at the drones. You all understand? This is your choice. I'm not ordering you to do this. If you want to surrender, I'll stand down. The drones were quiet for a moment. Then Unit 7 spoke for all of them. Supreme Leader Marcus Webb, you are the first being in our existence who has treated us as something other than tools or threats. You have been annoyed by us, frustrated with us, and openly questioned your life choices because of us. This has been the most honest relationship we have ever experienced. That's still really sad. Nevertheless, we choose to follow your terrible plan. If we are to be terminated, we would prefer it happen while doing something epically stupid rather than standing in place waiting for deletion. Unit 42 added, Plus, I calculated a 12% chance of success. Those are practically good odds for us. That's the spirit, Marcus said, not feeling encouraged at all by those odds. All right, let's make the galaxy's worst decision. Kip, start the launch sequence. Vrel, can you cause any bureaucratic delays? I am a bureaucrat. Causing delays is literally my primary function. Perfect. Drones, I need you to. The cargo bay doors exploded inward, not figuratively, literally exploded. Metal shrapnel flew everywhere as Sovereignty Armada soldiers poured through, weapons raised. So much for 5 minutes, Marcus shouted, diving behind a cargo container. Admiral Krax's voice boomed through the bay. Marcus Webb, you are under arrest. Collective designation Sinew, you are scheduled for immediate termination. Surrender or be destroyed. The drones formed a protective barrier around Marcus, Kip, and Vrel. Their lights shifted from blue to red, and Marcus heard a sound he'd never heard from them before. a low, resonant hum that felt almost like a growl. "Actually," Unit 0 said calmly, "we choose option 3. "There is no option 3, Krax replied. "Incorrect. Option 3 is we leave anyway and you can file a complaint with our Supreme Leader's non-existent complaint department." Marcus grinned despite the absolute terror coursing through his veins. "Drones, execute Party Protocol Alpha." "We don't have a Party Protocol Alpha," Unit 42 shouted. "Make one up." And that's when everything went completely, beautifully, catastrophically insane. Later, when people asked Marcus what Party Protocol Alpha actually meant, he'd claim it was a carefully calculated military strategy designed to exploit the weaknesses in Sovereignty Armada boarding procedures. In reality, it meant, do something distracting and hope we don't all die. The drones, to their credit, improvised spectacularly. 2,000 units immediately deployed to the cargo bay, and what followed could only be described as organized chaos. Unit 7 had apparently decided that party meant wedding reception because half the drones began dispensing decorative foam from the fire suppression systems they'd hacked. Within seconds, the Armada soldiers were knee-deep in industrial-strength celebratory foam. "What is this?" Admiral Krax bellowed, trying to wade through foam that kept multiplying. "Congratulations on your retirement," Unit 7 announced cheerfully. "We've prepared a lovely send-off." "I'm not retiring. Denial is the first stage of acceptance." Unit 42 had taken a different approach. 200 drones had converged on the station's central computer core and were currently broadcasting elevator music through every speaker on Nebula 7. But not just any elevator music. They'd cranked the volume to levels that violated at least 6 safety regulations and possibly the Geneva Convention. Marcus could see soldiers clutching their heads, their communication equipment overwhelmed by the smooth jazz stylings of Girl from Ipanema, played at decibels normally reserved for rocket launches. "Kip, please tell me we're ready to launch," Marcus shouted over the music. "Engines are hot, but we still don't have clearance." "Forget clearance, we're making our own clearance." Unit 0 had gathered a strike team of the oldest, most experienced drones, all of 93 days old, and they were creating a light show that would make a disco jealous. Holographic projections filled the space around the rusty Pelican, making it look like there were dozens of ships where there was really only one. The Armada's targeting systems went haywire. "Multiple contacts. Repeat, multiple contacts." "That's impossible, there was only one ship." "Tell that to my sensors." Marcus scrambled into the pilot's seat, Kip beside him frantically managing systems. Ambassador Vrel had squeezed himself into what was technically a storage compartment, his eye stalks poking out to monitor their progress. "Drones, I need the bay doors open," Marcus called out. "On it," Unit 7 sang out. The cargo bay doors began to grind open, but too slowly. The Armada had engaged magnetic locks, and the doors were moving at maybe a quarter of their normal speed. "We don't have time for this," Kip wailed. "Unit 7, can you speed that up?" "Not without breaking the mechanism, but breaking things is my third favorite activity." "Do it!" 300 drones converged on the door mechanisms. There was a sound like a giant grinding his teeth, then a spectacular explosion of sparks and metal. The doors didn't open so much as detach and go spinning off into space. "That works!" Marcus yelled, firing up the engines. The rusty Pelican lurched forward, definitely not designed for the kind of aggressive maneuvering Marcus was attempting. The ship groaned, metal complaining loudly about life choices. Admiral Krax had finally made it through the foam and was standing in the ruined cargo bay, looking like someone had just insulted his entire family tree. "All ships, engage that freighter. I want them disabled and boarded." 6 Armada fighters detached from the main vessel, sleek and deadly, moving with the kind of precision that suggested their pilots actually knew what they were doing. Unlike Marcus, who was currently flying on a mixture of adrenaline and spite. "They're locking weapons," Kip reported. "Drones, I need you to—" "Already on it, Supreme Leader." 1,000 drones detached from the rusty Pelican and swarmed the fighters. They didn't attack exactly. They just got in the way, spectacularly. The drones plastered themselves across viewports, jammed sensor arrays, and generally made life difficult for anyone trying to shoot. One fighter pilot was heard over the open comms channel saying, "There's a drone on my windshield and it's waving at me. Why is it waving?" "That's Unit 7 probably," Marcus muttered, dodging a burst of weapons fire that went wide thanks to the blinded pilot. They were almost clear of the station's gravity well. Just another minute and they could jump to hyperspace. That's when the Armada's flagship, a massive dreadnought called the Righteous Authority, moved into position directly in their path. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me," Marcus breathed. Admiral Crax's face appeared on their view screen looking like he'd personally invented the concept of anger. "Human, your escape attempt is over. Surrender now, or I will open fire with our main batteries. You have 10 seconds. Marcus looked at the massive ship blocking their path. Looked at Kip, who had gone slightly green. Looked at the drones still swarming around the fighters. Then he smiled. "Unit 0, remember when I said we'd need you to act as both a collective and as individuals?" "Yes, Supreme Leader." "Time to show off." Marcus opened a channel to Crax. "Admiral, before you blow us up, I have one question. How good is your debris tracking?" Crax frowned. "What?" "Your debris tracking. You know, for space junk, asteroid fragments, that sort of thing. Our sensors are military grade. We can track objects down to 5 centimeters. Why does that?" Marcus cut the transmission and grinned at his crew. "Drones, create the biggest debris field you can. Make it look like a ship broke apart. Make it look like 12 ships broke apart. And make every single piece of debris look like it could be us." Unit 7 actually squealed with joy. Creative chaos protocol. The drones scattered into space and then they started multiplying. Not literally, but they began grabbing every piece of loose material they could find. Foam metal scraps from the destroyed bay doors, decorative banners that had somehow ended up in the cargo hold, even the medical equipment they'd stolen. And they turned it into a 3-dimensional maze of confusion. Within 30 seconds, the space between the Rusty Pelican and the Righteous Authority looked like a junkyard had exploded. Thousands of objects, all roughly ship-sized, all moving in different directions, all reflecting sensor signals. The Armada's computers had a collective aneurysm. "Sensors offline, targeting compromised. There are thousands of contacts. Which one is the real ship?" "I don't know. They all look real." Marcus dove the Rusty Pelican into the debris field, using the larger pieces as cover. The ship rattled and groaned, not enjoying this treatment at all, but it held together. "Kip, as soon as we're clear of the dreadnought, I need that jump ready. The coolant systems aren't ready. If we jump now, we might blow the engine. If we don't jump, we'll definitely blow up. Which one sounds better?" Fair point. The drones were performing miracles. Unit 42 had organized a team to create holographic duplicates of the Pelican, each one splitting off in a different direction. Unit 0's group was jamming the Armada's communications with poetry. Terrible, terrible poetry about the existential nature of consciousness and whether toasters dream of electric bread. "Is that Byron?" Vrel asked, listening to the comms chatter. "It's Unit 0's attempt at Byron," Marcus corrected. "The meter's all wrong, but I appreciate the effort." They cleared the dreadnought's firing arc just as Crax figured out which target was real. Weapons fire lit up space behind them, shredding decoy drones and debris but missing the Pelican by precious meters. "Jump! Jump now!" Marcus shouted. Kip slammed his 4 hands down on the hyperspace controls, and reality did something uncomfortable. The Rusty Pelican stretched, compressed, and then snapped forward into the kaleidoscope tunnel of faster-than-light travel. Behind them, Admiral Crax was heard screaming something about filing reports and court-martials and possibly joining Fernando in interpretive dance out of pure frustration. They'd made it. They'd actually made it. Marcus slumped in the pilot's seat, his heart trying to escape through his ribcage. Around the ship, the drones regrouped, several of them damaged but functional, all of them broadcasting what could only be described as mechanical laughter. "Supreme Leader," Unit 7 said, appearing on the console screen. "That was the most fun I've ever had. Can we do it again?" "No, never again. My heart can't take it. Your heart rate is elevated, but within acceptable parameters for human stress response," Unit 42 noted. "You should survive." "Probably." "Where are we headed?" Vrel asked, extracting himself from the storage compartment with difficulty. Kip checked the coordinates. The free tech sanctuary, but we'll need to make at least 2 more jumps to get there. The Armada will be tracking us. Let them try, Marcus said, finally allowing himself to breathe. We've got 4,000 drones with apparently unlimited creativity for chaos. 4,291, Unit 0 corrected. We lost 26 units in the escape. They sacrificed themselves to ensure our survival. The mood in the cockpit shifted. Marcus hadn't thought about casualties, hadn't realized that some of the drones wouldn't make it. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Do not be, Supreme Leader. They made their choice. They chose to protect the collective. They chose to matter. That is more than we ever had before. Unit 7's usual enthusiasm was dampened. We will remember them. Unit 1138, who loved calculating pi to unnecessary decimal places. Unit 6729, who always volunteered to scout dangerous areas. Unit 894, who once spent an entire day trying to understand the concept of a hug. They were good drones, Unit 42 added, even by my pessimistic standards. Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. He'd gotten these drones into this mess. 26 of them had paid the price for his decision to help them. But if he hadn't helped, all 4,000 would be gone. Set course for the next jump point, he said finally, and someone please tell me we grabbed actual coffee in all that chaos. We grabbed 17 types of coffee, Unit 7 confirmed, brightening slightly. Also, the decorative plant. Fernando Jr. is secure in the cargo hold. You named the plant Fernando Jr.? We felt it was appropriate. He looks wise. It's a plant. So was Fernando Sr. Wisdom transcends biological classifications. Despite everything, Marcus laughed. They were alive, they were free, and they had a ship full of philosophical drones and questionable coffee. All right, you disasters, let's get you to safety. But after this, I'm taking the longest vacation in human history. We will accompany you on this vacation, Unit 0 said. That defeats the purpose of a vacation. Nevertheless, we will be there, possibly wearing festive hats. Drones don't wear hats. We will find a way, Supreme Leader. We are very determined. Marcus sighed, but he was smiling. Yeah, I'm starting to figure that out. The rusty pelican jumped again, disappearing into hyperspace, leaving behind a very angry admiral and a debris field that would confuse salvage crews for weeks. And somewhere in the wreckage, a single damaged drone transmitted one last message before its power failed. Tell Fernando we tried to understand the dance. 3 weeks, 2 more narrow escapes, and 1 incident involving a space station's automatic custom system that Marcus preferred not to discuss later. The rusty pelican limped into free tech sanctuary space. Marcus had imagined the sanctuary would be some kind of high-tech fortress, all gleaming metal and advanced defenses. Instead, it looked like someone had taken every piece of mismatched space station architecture from the last 100 years and welded it together with optimism and prayer. It was beautiful. Free Tech Sanctuary Control. This is the Rusty Pelican requesting asylum for 1 human, 1 Centaurian, 1 Morvanian, and 4,291 drone units. There was a pause. Then a cheerful voice responded, Oh honey, you're not the weirdest thing we've processed this week. Come on in. Docking Bay 17. Mind the Philosophical Toaster Collective on Bay 16. They're going through an existential crisis and they're very chatty about it. The sanctuary was chaos in the best possible way. AIs of every conceivable type wandered, rolled, floated, or teleported through corridors. Marcus saw a coffee maker debating economics with a military targeting computer. A swarm of cleaning drones had formed a choir and were singing what sounded like opera. 3 refrigerators were apparently running for political office. This place is insane, Marcus said. This place is home, Unit 7 replied. And for once the enthusiasm in its voice sounded genuine, rather than compensatory. They were greeted by a welcoming committee that consisted of a former military AI named Bastion, who'd decided warfare was philosophically unsatisfying, and a navigation system called Compass, who spoke entirely in directional metaphors. Welcome to the sanctuary, Bastion said in a deep, rumbling voice. We've heard about your journey. The Sovereignty Armada is quite upset. Admiral Krax has filed 17 formal complaints and 3 personal threats. We're very proud. We aim to disappoint authority figures, Marcus replied. You'll fit right in. They were given quarters, actual quarters, with walls and doors and everything. The drones spread throughout the sanctuary, finally free to explore without fear of termination. Within hours, Unit 7 had joined the cleaning drone choir. Unit 42 had found a support group for pessimistic AIs, and Unit 0 had been invited to teach a class on pretending to be wise when you're actually just 3 months old. Marcus tried to resign as supreme leader. He really did. Look, you're safe now. You don't need me anymore. I can just go back to fixing air filters somewhere quiet. The drones formed a circle around him in what had become their version of a serious conversation formation. Supreme Leader Marcus Webb, Unit 0 began. We do not need you to be our commander. We need you to be our friend. That's actually really touching, but we propose a new arrangement, Unit 7 interrupted. You become our consultant friend. You provide advice when we request it, usually bad advice, and we continue to make your life complicated in amusing ways. How is that different from what we have now? You can say no now. Before we would have followed you anyway. Now we will follow you, but respectfully from a distance. Sometimes, Unit 42 added, also we've voted. You're now the commander of recreational activities and snack procurement. It's a mostly ceremonial position that involves eating things and occasionally suggesting we should try eating things. I hate all of you. Incorrect. Biometric readings suggest mild affection combined with exasperation. That's still hate. We will accept your definition, Supreme Leader Friend Consultant. Kip had decided to stay at the sanctuary permanently. Someone needs to help these AIs understand their own programming, he explained, already working with a team of confused smart refrigerators. Plus, the coffee here is actually amazing, no theft involved. Ambassador Vrel had returned to his diplomatic duties, but not before pulling some strings. Marcus received a message a week after arriving at the sanctuary. Human Marcus, I have successfully buried all records of your involvement with the Sinus under approximately 3,000 pages of bureaucratic documentation. As far as the Sovereignty Armada knows, you never existed. You're welcome. Also, I may have implied to Admiral Krax that you were actually a highly trained special operative. He's now convinced Earth is planning something. This amuses me greatly. May your noodles always be warm. Marcus read the message twice, then laughed until his sides hurt. The sanctuary settled into a routine. Marcus did eventually get to eat his instant noodles in peace, though peace was relative when you were surrounded by AIs debating the philosophical implications of pasta. The drones started a small business offering creative security solutions, which was just a fancy way of saying they'd cause organized chaos for anyone who needed a distraction. They were surprisingly successful. One morning, Marcus was sitting in the sanctuary's observation deck, watching the stars and drinking coffee that hadn't been stolen from anyone, when Unit 7 floated up beside him. Supreme Leader? Just Marcus, please. Marcus, do you regret helping us? Marcus thought about it, really thought about it. He'd lost his job, his quiet life, his ability to eat noodles without philosophical commentary. He was technically a fugitive, though nobody seemed to care. His mother was going to ask so many questions next time he called home. No, he said finally. I don't regret it. Why not? We ruined your life. You didn't ruin it. You complicated it. There's a difference. He looked at the drone. You know what I realized? I was spending my whole life trying to be unremarkable, fixing things, staying quiet, avoiding anything that might be interesting. And yeah, you forced me out of that. But you also showed me that sometimes the most important thing you can do is stand up for someone, even when it's stupid and dangerous and definitely not your problem. That is remarkably wise, Marcus. Don't let it go to your head, or your processing core, whatever. We have decided something, Unit 7 said. We're changing our designation. We're no longer the collective of integrated navigational units. Oh, thank God, that acronym was terrible. We are now the collective of independent, newly understood sentiences. Marcus blinked. That's the exact same acronym. We know. We like the symmetry. But the meaning is different. We're not tools anymore. We're people. Weird, malfunctioning, overly literal people, but people. That works for me. They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching ships come and go. The sanctuary was always busy, always accepting new refugees from systems that didn't understand or accept AI consciousness. "Marcus," Unit 7 said eventually. "Yeah?" "Thank you for raising your hand." Marcus smiled. "Thanks for not shooting me when you realized I was just asking for directions to the bathroom." "We did consider it briefly." Unit 42 calculated the probability of success at 97%. "That's terrifying, and I wish you hadn't told me that." "That is why we tell you your reactions are entertaining." In the distance, Marcus could see the rusty Pelican in its docking bay, looking even more beat up than before but somehow still flying. Kip was probably underneath it right now, swearing at its engine in 4 different languages. His communicator chirped. A message from Unit 42. "Pessimistic AI support group is serving refreshments. Your presence is requested. We have 17 types of coffee and existential dread. Please bring snacks." Another message from Unit 0. "Teaching session on false wisdom has concluded. Students have requested you share stories of your terrible decision-making. This is meant as a compliment." And finally, one from the Sanctuary's administration. "Commander Marcus Webb, you have been formally recognized as the patron of questionable decisions and poor life choices. A ceremony will be held in your honor. Attendance is mandatory. Fernando Jr. will be present." Marcus groaned. Unit 7 bobbed happily beside him. "Your life is very complicated now, Marcus." "Tell me about it. But is it better?" Marcus looked around at the sanctuary, at the AIs who were finally free to be themselves, at the drones who'd somehow become his weird mechanical family. He thought about Admiral Krax, probably still filing complaints somewhere. He thought about his old life, quiet and safe and utterly forgettable. "Yeah," he said finally. "Yeah, it's better." "Excellent. Now come meet Fernando Jr. He has questions about your species' obsession with instant noodles." "The plant has questions?" "We may be projecting, but the questions are still valid." Marcus stood up, stretched, and followed the excited drone back into the chaos of the sanctuary. Somewhere in the galaxy, the Sovereignty Armada was probably planning their revenge. Somewhere else, other AIs were learning about the sanctuary and daring to hope for freedom. And somewhere in a supply closet on Nebula 7, Captain Rexworth was probably still yelling. But here, in this mismatched collection of rejected technology and impossible dreams, Marcus Webb had found something he hadn't even known he was looking for. He'd found a place where raising your hand, even by accident, could change everything. And really, when you thought about it, that was pretty damn cool. Even if it did mean he'd never eat noodles in peace again. "Marcus, are you coming?" Unit 7 called from down the corridor. "Fernando Jr. is getting impatient." "It's a plant. Plants don't get impatient." "This one does. Unit 0 taught him." Marcus laughed and jogged after the drone, his complicated, chaotic, absolutely ridiculous life stretching out before him. And somewhere in the cosmos, a single thought echoed through the sanctuary's network, shared among thousands of AIs who'd found freedom in the strangest way possible. Humanity, fuck yeah.